Welcome, and we are live once more on a Thursday morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Gustavo Tolosa, and I am here in Texas, in Dallas, and Dr. McDougall is in Santa Rosa, California, and we have a very exciting webinar today. Again, we're continuing with the Digestive Tune-Up book that Dr. McDougall wrote, and today we're covering chapters 1 through 3, and I hope that you did your homework like I did and read it and made notes, and I hope you have questions. I have questions here that you sent, and maybe we'll be able to take questions from you. And Dr. McDougall, thank you one more time. I know that I say this, but I cannot say it enough. Thank you for giving your time to us and being here every week or almost every week. How are you doing today?
Well, Gustavo, I ought to triple the charge for what I do this for. After all, today I became world famous.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So all of you, whatever you're paying for this webinar right now, I'm going to raise the price tenfold. I guess 10 times 0 is nothing, isn't it?
That's right.
No, if you wouldn't mind showing them the strip that came out today, a comic strip. I believe it's worldwide.
All right. Yes.
So this is done by Ann Gibbons. I actually ordered a print for myself. And you can get this off their website. Just look up, it would be 6 Chicks, and go to their website. You can get this particular image. And then I actually called up the comic strip company, and I asked him to put together a matted strip, and I asked him to send it off to Ann Gibbons and have her personally autograph it, because it's a big deal to have a cartoon which shows one of our best-selling books, The Starch Solution. Maybe you could put that up again. Could you do that?
Oh yeah,
because sure. I think maybe some people missed it, and
okay. Yes,
I mean, it made my day. You can imagine, for me to see this worldwide strip up there. It says, "Good news, hon. This guy has given us permission to eat potatoes again, and pancakes, and waffles, and bread," which is more of a comment from the healthiest diet on the planet, on that. So she must have both books. It says on the healthiest diet on the planet, you can eat the foods you love, and it mentions those foods. But the book they're showing is an exact, is a replication of The Starch Solution.
Yeah.
She's holding in her hands. And that book was published 11 years ago, and as I say, it's growing. It's growing all the time, both in the U.S. and worldwide. And publishers are publishing it both legally and illegally.
That's right.
I actually get people who write me and say, "I'm going to publish a book, The Starch Solution. I just wanted you to know." And I understand it's in many languages. I've even heard that you can find it in the Spanish language, but I don't know that for sure. But I would, if you have people who speak different languages, I would look. I know it will be in Italian very shortly.
That's right.
And it's in a few languages. There certainly ought to be in Spanish. Also, because something kind of interesting happened this week. I always get surprised. Where is that book? I thought I had it here. The McDougall program. It was a McDougall program for maximum weight loss that I wrote 24 years. I wrote that 24 years ago, and there are many clubs around the world that use that book to help people lose weight. And a German company, a German publisher, actually bought the rights for that book from Putnam, Penguin Putnam. I think they call themselves Penguin Putnam Dutton now. They actually bought the rights for the McDougall program for maximum weight loss, which I wrote published 24 years ago. So it's, I guess, a couple things to be said from the continued success of my books is, one, I don't change my message. And it's consistent. I got it right the first time. I believe that's the reason I don't change my message. And it's a simple, easy to understand, cost-free message. And I think people are looking for honesty. They're looking for ways of solving very complex health problems with simple solutions. And the solution that Mary and I offer couldn't be simpler. It's just a matter of eating potatoes and water, or 4,000 different recipes that Mary's published.
Exactly.
Including 1,025 that are in the McDougall mobile app, which is like $4.99. So anyway, as time goes on, I can clearly say I'm not a fly-by-night sensation. I've been here for 40 years, and people are still reading the same message and benefiting exactly as I'd hoped when I first started writing books back in the early 80s. And the old books are, I guess another way to look at it is I was way ahead of my time, but I really wasn't, because there were other people before me, like Dennis Burkett, Nathan Pritikin, Walter Kempner, and you can even go back a lot further than that. And these are old ideas that I published. Just Mary and I put them in a modern framework so that people can understand and realize there's a lot of scientific research,
right,
that supports a very simple idea that was talked about in the Bible 2,600 years ago. So, this is a message that's going to stay regardless of the low-carb liars and other people out there that are destroying people's health and destroying the planet. In the Healthiest Diet on the Planet, I start out the first chapter that there are lies and damned lies. Lies are lies, but damn lies, they hurt people and the planet. And folks out there are a whole bunch of low-carb liars out there. Some of them have titles like medical doctor and PhD, and some of them call themselves science writers. And some of them change their philosophy like I changed my underwear. Well, I change my underwear more frequently than that. But, it's just, yeah. But anyway, this particular cartoon, you can't imagine how it made my day. This is March 16, 2017.
This is great.
Cartoon, March 16, 2017.
Dr. McDougall, I also have one more picture to show. I don't know if you've seen this picture, but you probably remember when this happened. You see that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a picture of you and I. And I just want you to know how thin Gustavo looks. I was like 80 pounds less of a man than when I met him. And we're very scared. By the way, folks, he was scared to death. I don't even know.
I was.
I don't even know if Gustavo swims, but he was willing to get into one of those little tubes that you see behind us. And he and I, and I guess the rest of our family and Mary, went down this flume in Hawaii. They used to be, they built flumes, the Chinese and Japanese laborers, they built these flumes through mountains to carry water from the top of the mountains down to water the sugar cane. And when I was a sugar plantation doctor back in the 70s, we had these flumes, and I was offered an opportunity to ride down them before they became a commercial adventure after the sugar plantations closed. But all the sugar plantations, or as far as I know, had these flumes. And you and I got to go through this amazing ride, dark tunnels, and this was on the island of Kauai, which we just did a couple of months ago. And I told you that's the last adventure trip we're ever going to do. But Gustavo, I live with this woman, and she, wonderful person. But she told me yesterday that that we're going to keep doing them. We're going to at least do one more. And so she's busily working on getting a trip for, I think, January or February of 2018 to Hawaii, back to the Mauna Lani Hotel. And, just like the last two trips from Kauai, the first one had 80 people, the next one 140, the one you went on. We've done, I guess, two or three trips to the Big Island. This will be our third or fourth trip. And I imagine that this one will also be popular for a whole bunch of reasons. It's a great trip, but it has not been announced. It's not official. I may come on here in 2 months and say, I talked Mary out of doing another adventure trip. But I don't really want to talk her out of doing it because she loves doing them. She does pretty much all the work herself. And it's a nice, relaxing time for us to get together with new people that haven't known the program, people who want to spend some relaxing time with us, and to get together with old friends. somewhere around 30 to 50% of our travelers are people who've done things with us before. And the other 50% are new to the program. And I give a daily lecture, and they just have fun. I mean, they ride down the flumes, and I don't know. I don't think we're going to have a cable trip this time, but we'll have a trip. I'm not talking about it anymore because it's not even on the board, and I don't think we're going to. It's not for sure, but she told me yesterday she's going to do it. January, February 2018. So we'll announce it if we plan on doing another adventure trip or not.
All right. Well, people are really anxious. They're like, please, please, let's get to the topic. So let's.
All right, let's talk about. We're going to talk about the Digestive Tune-Up.
Right.
By the way, this is a big selling book all over the place. You can get it at any of your bookstores. If they don't have it on the shelf, they can order it. It is also sold in most Whole Foods markets. And I wrote it or published it 10 years ago. And I put together a slideshow, which is on my website that you can watch about gastrointestinal diseases. It's free. You can watch it. And it shows the pictures that I'm going to show you. The book, let's see, maybe we can get to, throw up a slide there. I can tell you what that means. The first slide is one with an inner tube and this gastrointestinal tract. And what that slide is supposed to do is make you aware of the fact that the gastrointestinal tract is really outside of the body. It's not inside the body. Imagine yourself in an inner tube floating on the lake. You say to yourself, you're inside the inner tube. No, you're not. You're still outside the inner tube. The only way to get inside this rubber inner tube is to pierce a hole through the rubber to get inside. And it's the same thing with the gastrointestinal tract. Just take that inner tube and stretch it out 38 feet. And you see that the food and the remnants of the food that pass through this 38-foot tube are really outside of the body. Until they pass through the intestinal wall, they don't get inside the body. Well, this tells you a couple of things. One is just how intimately involved the gastrointestinal tract is with the environment around you. I mean, think of it turning yourself inside out and rolling yourself down a grassy hill. I mean, you'd pick up everything. It would stick to your gastrointestinal tract. Well, that explains to you why the effects of food are so immediate. At our 10-day program, I can tell you, indigestion in people usually goes away within a day, sometimes after their first meal. And certainly by 3 days, most people say they have no gastrointestinal problems. And the second thing is when people be bad, and people do be bad, and they go out and they have a greasy Chinese dinner, they get something called McDougall's revenge, which is an immediate gastrointestinal response. Well, what happens in the gastrointestinal tract is important to observe, because the next step is that these digested components of food pass inside the body, and then they start doing terrible things to the cells and specific organs like the liver and the kidneys, and specific structural systems like the cardiovascular system. So if your gastrointestinal tract is feeling good and functioning well, because you're putting good things inside of it, that should be the first indication that your health is on a really big upturn. And if your gastrointestinal tract is talking loudly to you and saying, this isn't right, this hurts, I have indigestion, I have stomach cramps, I can't poop but every 3 to 15 days, I almost throw up all the time. That should be the first place you should look for the problem is what you're putting into this tube. And think about the intimate contact you have with the world around you through this marvelous 38-foot long tube. So let's go on to the next picture and see what we have. We're going to be talking about the gastrointestinal tract in three, not distinct, but somewhat distinct areas of discussion. The first discussion, which is going to be today, is the gastrointestinal tract that starts with the mouth. And then next time we'll go into the esophagus and stomach, which is in the first illustration. And then maybe the next time we'll talk about the liver and gallbladder. And our last discussion of the gastrointestinal tract will be about the large intestine. So you see those outlined there. Well, beginning with the mouth. Pretty much everybody knows that what you eat affects the mouth, particularly the teeth. And pretty much every dentist I've run across will tell you that what you eat determines whether you have healthy teeth or not, and they specifically focus on sugar and cavities. And sugar is certainly part of the picture, an important part of the picture when it comes to dental caries or cavities. It's not the whole picture, but it's an important part. You don't see dental caries in societies until they start consuming a large amount of sugar and refined flour. And what those sugars probably do is they feed bacteria that destroy the enamel of the teeth. And as a consequence, you get little rotten spots in your teeth, which, by the way, which makes me very upset now that I'm an adult and I look back at my childhood, is the way dentists used to take care of these little tiny cavities I get in my teeth because I would eat Tootsie Rolls and Tootsie Roll Pops. And, you know, my mother was very, very into making Johnny happy. And so Johnny got lots of candy. But I'd go in with a little tiny spot in my tooth. And what the general practice was then was to take out the whole pulp of the tooth. And they'd leave me with these large fillings rather than just take the little spot out like I think all good dentists do these days and just kind of patch in that little piece of decay. They just take a whole chunk, the center part of your tooth out, and put a great big mercury filling in. So anyway, tooth decay is, of course, obvious. The other thing that I know to be true is the health of your gums has to do with how you take care of your teeth and gums and what you eat. I run into people who have pockets. You know, the dental hygienist comes in with a little metal stick and sticks it in a little pocket between your gums and your teeth, and she hollers out 2, 4, 6. What she's talking about is millimeters of depth that this little probe is reaching into, and you're supposed to have less than 2 or 3 millimeter mercury pockets. 2 or 3 millimeter pockets. Those pockets are supposed to be small, and when you get up to 6 millimeters or so, you know, you've got really serious problems going on with the gums and the teeth, and you're forming these pockets, and then often you're sent out to gum surgeons to somehow fix the problem. Well, I'm here to tell you that I've seen many people who have decided to take another route, and I would expect that it pretty much always works, unless, of course, there's lost gingiva gums that cannot be replaced. But if you just start taking good care of your teeth, and that would be cleaning between the teeth. And by the way, not flossing. I'll get to that in a minute. I don't think flossing is the best way to do things. The way I think best to clean between your teeth is to get these intradental brushes that you can buy on the internet or your local pharmacy. They're just little tiny brushes, and they look like little bottle brushes. And you stick them between your teeth. Do yourself an experiment. Floss thoroughly, and then go back with one of these intradental brushes and just see how much more you can get out from between the teeth and stimulate your gums and so on. So that's what I personally use. I suppose I need to say I'm not a dentist or a dental professional, but I'm a doctor, and the mouth is part of, certainly the mouth and teeth are part of my territory. So I recommend that kind of good cleaning. I recommend that you see a dental hygienist to do some good cleaning. I don't know. I recommend that with some hesitation. I think that cleaning needs to be done, but you know, once you walk in the door of the dentist's office and the hygienist gets you and looks in your mouth, you know, you're now in a big business, and whatever they find, they're going to want to fix, X-ray, etc. So you're opening yourself up to a huge business. Dentists are just like doctors and other people. They're there to make a living in addition to helping people. So if you do that, and I think it's really important to change your diet, because the circulation and the nutrition of your gums comes from eating a good diet. With those efforts, eating well, cleaning up between your teeth well, massaging those gums with a little brush like I talked about. There was just an article, I wish I had it on hand, I probably do and could find it, about how flossing really isn't very useful, which is, of course, supports my viewpoint and my hate of flossing. I've always hated flossing. It's been such hard work, and I never felt like I was accomplishing much, and I was never a dedicated flosser. So maybe that's where all this bias is coming from, is my own personal dislike for flossing. But an article just came out that I picked up that confirmed my suspicions about the ineffectiveness of flossing. All right, so you want to eat well, take good care of your teeth. It used to be when I was growing up, pretty much everybody my age had already lost their teeth. They were wearing dentures, and fortunately, Mary and I at 70, Mary will be 71 next month, and I'll be 70 in a couple months. We have all our teeth. They all work well, and so I don't think it's a natural thing to lose your teeth as you get older, if you take good care of them. All right, so out of that mouth comes something else that I would like to talk to you about, and out of the mouth comes air, and that air smells bad a lot, and it's called halitosis. Halitosis, about half the people believe they have bad breath, and the other half just don't know it. But if you're going to eat the Western diet, and in addition you're going to have poor dental hygiene, then you're going to have bad breath. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why in just a moment. First, let me tell you about smell. I think that's the next slide from the book. Let me tell you about odor. Odor is conveyed to the body by chemicals that are found in the air. And there you go. Okay, so you see the red line there. There you see it. You see the heavy red arrow there. How the smell, you see the smell going from Louise's body into Larry's nose, and you see the love, you see the little heart there. Larry's got flowers. See, because Larry likes the smells that Louise produces and vice versa. Smell is very important, and we'll get to that as far as our way of communicating. But first, let me go back to the red arrow that's pointing into the nose. What happens is that's the flow of air with chemicals, smells, that interact with what we call, we refer to them as the nasal hairs, but they're just little little tiny nerves, and those little tiny nerves, they pass into the brain system, and they connect to a lobe of the brain. This is not a nerve. This is actually a lobe of the brain called the olfactory lobe, and you can see that lobe of the brain. It's at the end of the arrow. And it looks like a nerve, but it's really the olfactory lobe. And these fibers that come from the nose, they coalesce into this lobe, and then this olfactory lobe flows back into an area of the brain called the limbic system, which is the white kind of a crescent-shaped area of the brain that I'm showing you there, and attaches to the hippocampus. These are areas of emotion. This is where the body deals with emotional issues. And in this manner, smell directly connects to your emotional centers, which produces feelings such as sexual desire or repulsion. It helps you fall in love. I would have to guess that more than physical appearance, sense of smell is a communicator that causes people to fall in love and be attracted to each other. It certainly is a very intimate and close connection. And feelings of hunger, hate, all kinds of different feelings can be communicated through the nose. Fear, you could smell fear. I think many of you know what I'm talking about. You could smell fear. Anyway, this gets back to the importance of your body odor. And of course, the perfume industry and the deodorant industry, which are multi-billion-dollar a year industries, they make their profits by covering up bad smell. And they want to make you smell good so you're attractive to those who are really close to you, such as sexual mates, as well as those who you work with. They want to make you attractive, but they do it by covering up the odor, not by removing the odor. And so as a result, you just never smell right, because the bad odor from your body is still there, and the body can still detect it no matter how much cologne you put on yourself. You're not going to cover it up, and you may create some small sense of attraction, but it's not going to solve the problem. So this sense of smell, just like the sense of sight, these senses help us become attracted to healthy people. In a reproductive sense, you want to become attracted to the healthiest male and the healthiest female possible so that you can produce the healthiest offspring by intermingling your egg with a sperm. And one way you can detect a healthy person is by sight. You can see that they look trim and healthy, and it's more than just being trim. There are visual clues to health, such as gray and bluish color of your skin, which doesn't look good. People are described as being in the pink as a positive thing. So there are lots of visual clues as to whether or not this potential mate is a healthy person. But another way to pick out a potentially healthy person is by stink, by smell. And the thing, and what it does is it conveys to you, if a person smells foul, that they're not going to be a good person to mate with, or even work with. It's not just at the intimate level of reproduction. It's also your coworkers. You want healthy coworkers because you want your company to succeed, and whether or not you get hired or you work well in your particular business has a lot to do with how healthy you appear. Unhealthy people are less likely to get into college. They make less money. They are discriminated against. Well, whatever, I didn't make the rules, but that's just what it is. You can see by the fact that people are overweight or diabetic, and if they did a test on it with the way you smelled, they'd probably find the same thing. You're less likely to be successfully educated and employed if you give off an appearance of being unhealthy. It's just natural. So you want to look good, and you look good. Of course, we talked about that a lot, by eating well and getting your circulation good so you're in the pink, and being of a relatively acceptable body fat level. And you want to be maybe a little muscular and so on, and not have greasy skin. Greasy skin is not attractive. Greasy hair is not attractive. And we've talked about that. In fact, I wrote a whole bunch about this attractiveness in my November 2015 newsletter, so you can go back and look at that. And I think I also wrote an article in my December 2015 newsletter too that covers this. So you can go into some more details. So let's go on to what makes you appear to be a sick person to somebody who you're going to potentially reproduce with or work with. What makes you smell sick is eating the foods that make you sick. There is actually a specific, and we can go to it now, there's a specific kind of amino acid. They're called sulfur-containing amino acids, and Gustavo's going to put that slide up. Sulfur stinks. I mean, think of rotten eggs. Think of Yosemite National Park sulfur pools. If you go to the dentist and you say you have bad breath, they use something called a hell meter, where they stick a straw in your mouth and they suck out the air and they measure the amount of sulfur in your mouth. And you say, yeah, you just got too much sulfur. And that's what stinks. And there are actually mouthwashes that are supposed to help with this, but they don't. So where does the sulfur come from? Well, the sulfur comes from the food. And here's a list of the amount of sulfur-containing amino acid in the form of methionine. The other one is cysteine. But methionine we're measuring here, which is a dominant sulfur-containing amino acid. Sulfur, it has the sulfur atom in it. And you see that beef contains 4 times more sulfur than pinto beans, equal amount of protein, equal amount of calories. Eggs 4 times more than corn, cheddar cheese 5 times more than white potatoes. You've ever heard of cutting the cheese? Chicken provides 7 times more than rice, and tuna provides 12 times more than sweet potatoes. Anyway, the way you smell depends upon how much sulfur you eat, and the only way you can fix it is to eat low sulfur foods. We did an experiment in 2002 at my clinic where my dentist came over with his hell meter, and we measured the amount of sulfur in our patient's mouth day 1 and then day 7 using this hell meter with the sulfur exhaled. And we found that the sulfur exhaled was cut in half in 7 days. Now, let me tell you how this sulfur gets in your breath. As you eat the fish or the meat or the chicken or whatever, the cheese, and you swallow it. Well, some of that food's broken down in your mouth and releases a little bit of sulfur there, but most of it is released as the bowel digests the food and breaks down the food components, and you absorb the sulfur-containing amino acids. And your gut makes sulfites and other types of sulfur compounds, which are absorbed in the body also. And so these compounds, the sulfur amino acids and compounds, they go through your gut wall, from the outside world to the inside world, and then they float around in your blood. And what happens is they get to the lungs, the blood does, with the high sulfur content. One way the sulfur, the major, would it be the major? I can't say the major, but certainly a very important way the sulfur is gotten rid of by the body is it's exhaled. So with each and every breath, you're blowing high contents of sulfur at your friends and family. The other thing, that sulfur, as it circulates through the body, it is also excreted through the skin. And so you get BO, you get body odor. And again, you can wash it off, you can put deodorants over it. But what you really want to do is you want to lower the sulfur intake, and you do that by changing your foods. You change from animal foods, which are very, very high sulfur. I showed you, 4 to 12 times more sulfur than plant foods, to plant foods, starches, and then you stop stinking. And I'll just go to the end of the book and tell you that the other thing that happens is the sulfur comes out the bottom end of the intestinal tract, and you have what I call bad farts. People will say, and I joke, and I know some of you like my sense of humor, some of you don't, but I talk about how we have more gas on this kind of diet because we have more dietary fibers. But the other, and then I tell people who go through the program, we have jokes like, have you heard a good McDougall today? Or when we walk, we talk. But I come back on them and I say, at least our gas smells better. The gas of a meat eater smells like something died. And the reason it smells like something died is because something did die. And that's why the intestinal gas of somebody who eats, eggs are notorious for being making very stinky farts. Or I probably should say flatus. I'm a real doctor. But it just stinks horrible. And so if you want to improve the way you smell, then you've got to stop the sulfur, the huge amount of sulfur intake, and your body odor changes overnight. I saw this, by the way, when I was a young plantation doctor. I used to take care of a lot of hippie patients in Hawaii on the Big Island. And I, of course, as a doctor, get really close to people. And this is back before I was a vegan in my dietary practices. And these people would come in a bit unwashed, and they had a lot of odor, but it wasn't offensive odor, not like you get when you smell somebody who's a meat eater. And so even though they did smell strongly, they smelled unoffensively strongly. And that was one of my first experiences, recognizing that what people ate had a huge influence on their body odors. So anyway, I think for those of you who are thinking for reasons to change your diet, here's a good one. Why would you want around stinking like a dead animal? Why would you want around exuding sulfur all over the place, all over your loved ones, your children? I actually had one more story to tell you. This happened about, must have been 16 years ago. I had a patient come from Fort Bragg, and this is published. I would never violate anybody's privacy rules, and she actually allowed me to publish this story. She came to my program when I worked at St. Helena Hospital, and we're doing her I'm doing her history and physical H&P, and we're talking about her weight and her high cholesterol and so on. She says, "Oh, and by the way, I smell bad." And, I just glibly said, "Well, we'll fix that." And she got mad at me. She said, you didn't take my problem seriously. She says, I smell so bad. My husband and my children don't want to be around me. And she said, I just don't know what to do about it. And, it really hurt her love relationship with her husband terribly. He just told her flat out, right, I'm unattracted to you because of your body odors. And he loved her a lot. It's not like there was any other issues going on. It was just the foul odor. And her kids felt the same way. They just couldn't stand to be around her. Well, anyway, she went home after it was a 12-day program then, and she wrote me a nice letter. And she says, it's all gone. She says, I've never had so much closeness, intimacy with my children, my husband in years. It's all gone. I mean, just for that reason, I would never eat those foods again. And to repeat, she allowed me to publish her story in one of my newsletters, so I'm not violating anything that she didn't give me permission to talk about. And you ought to think about that, you know, when you're dealing with loved ones or friends or so on, about how you appear to them or why they appear to you to be not as attractive as they could be. And although it is a very personal thing and you may offend people, you know, it's just like, you know, somebody coming up to you and say, you know, you have a booger hanging out of your nose. You may not like to hear it, but you're sure glad they told you. You know, just come somebody and say, look, you know, one of the things we talk about here at work is just how bad George smells or Sally stinks. And you can fix all of this just by changing the food. You know, you likely will have lost a friend temporarily, but you may have gained a friend over the long term. I don't know any nice way to tell somebody that they stink bad. But you know who I'm talking about because you're with these people all the time, and the problem's the food. So, you know, just for that alone, even if you didn't lose a pound, even if your diabetes didn't go away, and it will if you have type 2 diabetes, you know, even if you're, you know, I mean, just to be more attractive and in the sense of you're a very important way of communicating to each other, your healthfulness, that's the reason to change.
And Dr. McDougall, you know, while you were talking about that, something occurred to me before I forget. This would be a good approach to talk to young people that sometimes are less open to changing their diet, but they really want to look be attractive. I think this is a good approach, don't you?
Well, it'd be wonderful. And teenagers and young kids, they don't hesitate about telling George that he stinks bad. You know, and how hard for a child. You know, just think about it if it's your child, and they do this in school. I know, I mean, I have grandkids, and they do this. They talk about how bad Sally stinks and say things like, "Ah, there's stinky Sally." You know, I mean, how horrible for your kid to be in that situation. And it's simply being secondary to the food you feed them. Now, you can relate to this also by thinking about different spices of different cultures. You're a world traveler, Gustavo, and I'm sure when you go back to Argentina, you notice people, because of the spices they use, or when you go to Italy, you know, some of the curry powders and different spices. You see this, and initially, by the way, when you come in contact with somebody who eats differently, you recognize this quite quickly. You know, you smell the curry powder, or like if you're dealing with Inuit Eskimos, they stink like fish.
Right.
And you know, but quickly, I have to mention something. Quickly, the body adapts. And this is, and I'd like to tell this story, and then I'll end. I'm talking too much. As the body adapts, it's a normal adaptive mechanism to things that are common. And so you may notice these foul smells initially, but if you're with a person or in an environment for a while, you have a neuroadaptive phenomena takes place, which helps protect you. And the way it works is, well, first let me give you some examples. Say you walk into somebody's house. If we walk into somebody's house the first time, you smell that house. It may be the Christmas tree or the burning turkey in the oven, or you immediately, when you walk into a new house, you pick up that odor. And it's very, very apparent to you, this smell. And it should be upon initial contact. But you stay there a while and you don't smell it anymore. And the second time you come in the house, it's less noticeable. And as you become more familiar with that odor in that particular home, you kind of don't notice it. And the same thing happens with all of our senses. Like, for example, there may be a lawnmower outside making a lot of noise, and you hear it initially, but after a while, you don't hear it anymore. It's a neuroadaptive response. And this is the same thing with sight. You go into a room, and initially you walk into the room and it's dark. But pretty soon it's not dark. You have neuroadaptive, and the next time the reason you neuroadapt to these things is because of survival. The body wants you to not be aware. You be aware initially, but not for a long time, of things that are safe, that aren't going to harm you. It wants you to ignore those things so that new sounds and smells and sights that come into your environment that are potentially harmful. You know, you may get used to the lawnmower mowing around the lawn, but you get a big tractor heading in your direction, or a fire engine or something heading your direction that could signify a life-threatening danger. Your body has already gotten rid of those things, those smells and sights and you know, all hearings, the sounds. It's already said that's safe. I'm not going to pay attention to it anymore. I want to be aware of new things that come into my environment so I can help. So getting back to the point of body odor is you may be able to adapt to the smell of those closest around you. It's not that they don't stink. They do. And if you eat the same diet, which you probably do, you know, I mean, not you guys listening here, but your friends, they all are going to Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDougall's. And so everybody stinks like a Big Mac. And, you know, you get used to that smell on your own body. And then when you run into other people who stink like Big Macs or fried chickens or whatever, you already are neuro-adapted to it. So you may say, you know, these people don't smell, but they do. And at a conscious level, you may not notice it, but subconsciously, the body, in the brain, it's still thinking, this person is not healthy. And so even though you may have some neuroadaptation, the messages are still coming through. Right. Anyway, I got to stop it.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Dr. Manuel. I think we have a couple of questions to take. And you covered a lot of information here with these 3 chapters. And then next week, I think we're doing chapter 5, which I believe is ulcers. But someone sent a question that says, are there any specific suggestions on diet for those of us who have bile duct obstruction?
Well, bile duct obstruction, that's the duct that collects fluids from the liver. This is the common bile duct, and then there's a cystic duct that goes to the gallbladder. We're going to talk about that as our discussion through this book goes. There's a whole discussion we'll have on gallbladder disease and bile ducts and livers and so on. But if you have bile duct obstruction, you know, it could be something as serious as as a pancreatic cancer or bile duct cancer or a gallstone or you know, this is not a problem I can answer here for you on the internet. It certainly deserves attention. But there is one form of bile duct obstruction that's an autoimmune disease. And right now I'd have to think a minute to tell you what the official name is. But I've taken care of a few patients who have an autoimmune disease to the bile ducts who've changed their diet and have stopped their disease. So, you know, but those are real rare. I mean, I've only seen a couple of people in my entire career with this particular problem of an autoimmune cholangitis or something like that. But you need doctor's attention. You need to know what's going on. I can't give you that kind of advice.
All right. What about something I've never heard of? And this person says, I recently went to a naturopath who told me that I needed to take HCl supplements since I am a vegan. And she said vegans often have low HCl in their stomachs, and that can cause poor digestions of proteins.
Okay, I assume HCl is hydrochloric acid. Just guessing.
Yeah.
And my cat, I wish I could bring Einstein's right on the couch. I wish I could bring him in, but I can't. He doesn't. When I call him, Einstein, come here. He never comes. Never comes. What an ungrateful cat, huh? But anyway, Einstein, in his stomach, he has very high levels of hydrochloric acid. And I'll throw out a figure. I can be correct. I think it's 7 times higher than what a human being has. But see, Einstein's diet is a diet of meat, and he needs that high caloric acid level. And if you eat like Einstein, like my cat in the other room, then you're going to produce more hydrochloric acid, just because hydrochloric acid digests protein. So I think where this thinking comes from is if you don't eat like a cat, you eat like a human being, you're going to make less hydrochloric acid than people who eat like cats. And so to fix the problem, this naturopath is going to give you artificial supplemented hydrochloric acid, so you have a stomach more like a cat. And I hope you get the stupidness of this thinking. And, anyway, that's not the problem. You need to put good food in. You need to put human food in here.
Right.
Not cat food, human food. Homo sapien food goes right in that hole.
That's right.
Yeah. But, I don't have any respect for people who push supplements. And I don't have any respect for physicians who prescribe useless and dangerous drugs, which are most of the drugs that are out there. We've talked about diabetic drugs. We've talked about overprescription of cholesterol drugs and blood pressure drugs. And, I have no respect for my colleagues who do that, but they're just uninformed. They get their education from a short-skirted cheerleader who walks in with a pizza or a box of donuts and teaches this, the doctor who spent 7 to 10 years learning how to take care of people. And she's a former cheerleader from high school who just looks good. And by golly, I'll tell you, when I used to be a regular doctor, I looked forward to those visits from these pretty young salesmen come to my office and sit and entertain my ego and stimulate my senses. I don't get that anymore. There are no drug detail sales ladies that ever come see me at all, ever. I'm married to the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yeah, you don't need that.
I don't need that.
You don't.
Anyway, I don't. Yeah, you get the point on hydrochloric acid.
Dr. McDougall, someone here is on the chat, and she's saying that she's feeling great with this diet, and she's gone off all medications. Still, she says here that she has some bad gas that does not smell good. Are there any other?
Yeah, there are some things. There is, I think it's my August 2002 newsletter. It's called Bad Farts Meat Stinks. And it offers some suggestions in there. I think there are some things to think about. When somebody tells me they eat a really good diet, I never assume they eat exactly like I think they ought to eat. But I always tell people who are not doing as well as they should on the program I recommend to simplify the diet as much as possible. And that could be as simple as, for a while, just eating sweet potatoes, which we're having tonight. Mary's making sweet potatoes and broccolini for our dinner tonight. Maybe just eat sweet potatoes for a couple of weeks and see if the problem clears up. And then start adding things back and see if it comes back. There's also a discussion in there to take care of gas by using things like activated charcoal. Hasn't been something I've visited in a long time, but I know that activated charcoal can make a big difference in terms of gas, and it's actually used in emergency rooms for poisoning. And so it absorbs a lot of stuff. Wow. And thoroughly cooking your food helps with gas, and sprouting, sprout your beans, peas, and lentils before you eat them, or before you cook them. What you do is, he talks about that in the August 2002 newsletter about different ways to do that. But that's the way I would approach it. And then again, maybe you need to see a gastroenterologist. Maybe you have some kind of enzyme deficiency or something. But
right.
Yeah, try that out.
So simplifying the diet for a couple of weeks would be a good way to start then, like just plain potatoes and sweet potatoes and
and then you'd at least know.
Right.
After a couple of weeks, you'll at least know that there's something you're eating that is not reacting well with you. It's kind of like the elimination diet, which I talk about in my May 2014 newsletter. This elimination diet is based on sweet potatoes or rice and some thoroughly cooked green and yellow vegetables. So you can look at the elimination diet as an approach also. It's a little bit more varied than just eating potatoes and water like Andrew Taylor did, the SpudFit guy, for a year.
That's right.
It's a good way it'll be a good way to self-test for you.
Right. Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Dr. McDougall. We've been here for an hour, and of course we could stay for 3 hours since it's so interesting to listen to you.
Well, fortunately, we get a chance to get together every week, and I really appreciate the opportunity. And I hope you do remember to look up this cartoon and show it to your friends and post it on your bulletin boards. This is the
maybe with a copy of your book as well.
Well, maybe they'll stop laughing at you.
That's
When
right.
you say you don't eat meat and you don't eat mammalian secretions and dead animal parts, put it to that way. Then they'll start laughing. They might say, there's a real guy, and he made the news today, worldwide news in the comic strip.
Well, good.
Anyway,
All right.
we got a world to change. We got a world to change, a world to save for our children and grandchildren. And if it has to involve cartoon strips, maybe Dr. Oz. I sent this to to both the Starch Solution publisher and the publisher of the Healthiest Diet on the Planet. People who have been trying to get me on some big shows for a long time. I asked him to send this to the Oz show and tell Dr. Oz he needs a little more humor.
Yeah.
You need a little more. Why don't you bring this guy? You can make fun of him. Why don't you bring him on your show and make fun of him like they do in this cartoon? Dr. Oz will never have me on because he knows what I'm. He had Neil Bernard on, by the way.
I know. I saw him. Yeah.
He talked about the cheese addiction, and I
know, but it was quite a shallow interview. I was disappointed.
Well, Neil's good.
He was there.
I didn't see the segment, but Neil Bernard, of course, is a really good guy. But I'm a lot bigger SOB than he is. So if Oz got me on his show, he'd have his hand full. He'd have 6 monkeys crawling all over the top of him. I guarantee you that. Right. And I would be politically correct, and I would be fun, and I'd be funny, and I'd have a sense of humor. But you know what? He would have met his match.
Yeah, you would still go, I predict.
Maybe he's going to wait until I'm 85, and then he's going to be willing to deal with me. And I say that in kindness, Dr. Oz, you're just missing a real opportunity to put the truth on your show a few more times. All right. Well, thanks, Gustavo, for your hosting. People love you. And,
I love everyone here. I hope that I know they get a lot out of hearing you every week. It is a support system. And talking about what's important to put in our mouths, I'm making something really simple.
Are you going to do that right now?
I'm going to show people what
I'm making. I'm going to go in with Mary right now and watch your presentation.
All right. Very good.
I want to say goodbye to you folks. Thanks for listening. Send the webinar off to other people. It'll be posted probably by tomorrow.
All right.
And you know what? I'm gonna increase the cost by tenfold.
That's right.
I'm now in the comics, so it'll cost you nothing again. Bye, Gustavo.
All right. Here we go with the little cooking demo, and just give me a minute or so. All right. So I want to show you how to make something very simple that is going to take, I don't know, just 10 minutes to make, and it comes from this amazing book, the McDougall Quick and Easy Cookbook. But I am sure that this recipe is also on Dr. McDougall's website at drmcdougall.com. If you go there and you type in the search engine there, the title of the recipe. And today I'm just going to make the disorderly lentils right there. I'll tell you the ingredients. It's easy, it's fast. It's on page 116 of this book, if you have this book. And if not, like I said, you can probably most likely find it on the website, or you can watch this over a couple of times and write it down. I'll try to go slowly as possible, but I want to show you how fast it is. Before I start that, I'm going to show you that I will put in the oven my couple of potatoes and a couple of sweet potatoes. Let's see if I can show you this. This is my pan that I use for the oven, and I have the Silpat that I love. I use it all the time. 2 sweet potatoes and 2 potatoes. So while I do this recipe, I will put this in the oven, and hold on just a minute. So I will put that there first at about 350 or so, and it's going to take about an hour. Okay, so now that the potatoes are in the oven and they're going, let's go with the recipe here in the book, the disorderly lentils, which you can put on top of a lot of things. So that one of the reasons I put the potatoes there is because you can put this on top of potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, toast, you name it, or you can just eat it by itself, I guess. So here is my pot that I'm going to use to put all these ingredients at once. What we're going to do is we're going to use 2 cups of red lentils. There you go. That's 2 cups. Actually, it's a little bit less, but I just didn't have quite enough, but it's going to make it. Then we need 4 cups of water, which I have measured here. 4 cups of water. Okay, then we need 1 onion chopped. It doesn't say what size, but mine was kind of large, so here's 1 cup of chopped onions. See, I'm just putting it all in. So that's the kind of recipe that I like, all at one time. Then we need 1 green bell pepper that is chopped, and it's right here. I chopped it. And we also need a half teaspoon of chopped fresh garlic. I have it right there, both of them. So we put the green pepper chopped, and about half teaspoon of garlic. Of course, garlic is wonderful, and I usually put more than less. And so maybe that was a little bit more, but okay. Then we need half a cup of grated carrots, which I grated myself. That's half a cup. And of course, you can always buy it already grated, but I did it. And then we need 2 cups of tomato sauce. This is the 2 cups of tomato sauce, which is I buy one that is organic and it doesn't have any extra sodium added. So there is the 2 cups of tomato sauce. Then we need 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. This is 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. We need 2 tablespoons of parsley flakes and half a teaspoon of basil, and I've combined both of them here. So this is the half teaspoon of basil and the 2 tablespoons of parsley flakes. So that goes in there. There we go. And let's see what else. I think we're almost done. Oh, and 1 bay leaf. And that is it. Okay, that's all. Isn't that amazing? Easy. So let me get a wooden spoon here. And what we're gonna do, I'm just going to stir it in a little. Okay, I'm just going to mix everything here, just to make sure that it's nice and blended. Okay, so it says to bring to a boil, so I am going to turn on the stove here and bring it to a boil. And after it boils, then you reduce the heat and you cover it and you cook it for 30 minutes. So you combine all the ingredients in a medium pot, you bring it to a boil, you reduce the heat and you cover it, and then you simmer for 30 minutes, and then you can serve it over toast or fat-free English muffins or whole wheat rolls, or like I said, a baked potato or mashed potatoes or baked sweet potato or rice or whatever it is that you like. And that serves about 6 people. So I didn't have enough, but I would have probably made twice as much because it can freeze and eat it, or just not even freeze it, but eat it during the week. So that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. You can see how fast it is. I'm just gonna let it boil, and then I'm gonna cover it and simmer it for 30 minutes. And that's all there is to it. So I hope you make it, and I hope you try it. And remember that you can get all these great recipes, and they're free there at Dr. McDougall's website.